Going.
One of the best TV shows out there.
This is the best TV show out there. Everyone watches it
Yeah, I can't believe it.
on Friday. Um,
Unbelievable.
all right,
I know
so
everybody has time on Friday.
I know everyone has a few minutes on Friday because it's Friday,
Give,
right?
give us some love.
You're gonna scroll by. You're gonna scroll by and want to see what we're
Hey,
doing.
hey, stop, stop.
um, all right, so a couple of things we want to talk about today. Had a couple questions come up this week about like a sticky client situation, right? Like
Yeah.
that's one of the main Wi-Fi problems. Now, so let's say you have three access points. I'm gonna put up this little graphic here that I came up with. So let's say you have three access points, and you have your three clients, and the sticky client is if the access point stays attached to the client stays attached to the access point that's too far away from him, right?
Yep.
He let's say that you're walking in with your laptop or your phone, you connect to the first access point, and then you walk away into another office where another access point is closer. That would give you faster, better speeds, but you stay connected to that first access point. Now, why is that, right?
Yeah.
Um,
And yeah, there's a lot of reasons for that. So, and it comes down to like just configuration, right?
yeah, configuration,
Configuration and placement, AP placement.
placement, and number of access points too.
Yeah.
So like in the beginning, or people would think an access point that has like a lot of transmit power is a good idea because you can put
Yeah.
one in your office and you can see like really good signal. You can see signal like from everywhere, right?
Yeah.
You may be able to see signal all of your office with one access point with the power turned way up,
Yeah.
or with high gain antennas,
Yeah,
right?
you're just blasting the signal, the radio signal really, really, really far, right?
Right. So my phone will be like, oh, I have a full Wi-Fi signal. That must be
Yeah.
good, right? Like, this is a good access point because I get a full signal. But when
Yep.
you go to use it, you start streaming video, it starts breaking up because you're too far away. Like, it can't talk back to that access point. You're too far
Yeah.
away. And there's another access point that's closer. There should be one that's closer that you can connect to and get a better quality connection.
That's right. Yep.
Um, so a couple things that you can do. Couple things you can do is one, don't crank the power of the access point up high to the highest, right?
Yeah. So I would say like in a single AP deployment, I guess you could do that.
Yeah,
Um, it doesn't mean, you know, again, like you said, it'll appear to look like you have great signal everywhere.
hmm.
And this has been a problem for like the last 20 years, right?
Oh yeah, yeah,
We've been dealing with this forever, right?
right,
So like in those situations, like with one AP, I guess you could blast the the output power, but you're still like your phone device is still, if you're too far away, you're still going to have problems communicating back, right?
right, right. So if someone you get this access point, you're like, oh, this is a good access point. I see really strong signal, whereas this other one I'm not seeing as much signal. This distance away. That's not
Yeah.
necessarily a good thing because you have to have the correct number of access points for the environment that you're in.
Yep. Even in a house, right? Like,
Even in a house, you don't just want one. You don't want to buy like a gaming router and put it down in the basement and buy the most expensive one, that has like
yeah,
these weird antennas on it, and then
yeah,
have to like huddle around the router to get a good connection. You want to put like wire in like 2, 3 access points in the right locations in the home or in the business, right?
yep. So you have, technically you want to be as close as possible to the access point or in clear line of sight of the access point.
Right.
Um, and you want those access, when you go beyond like a single AP or a Wi-Fi device and you have to start adding more, like you're saying, right? Then you do have to make sure that that output power is trimmed down or the
Right.
transmit power of the radio is trimmed down to a point almost to the point of like the same power as your least,
Powerful
you know,
device. Yeah.
yeah, least powerful device like a cell phone.
Yeah, and all right, so another thing there is the bands, the 2.4 and the 5. You actually want to turn the power on the 2.4 down even more, maybe to the
Yeah.
lowest setting,
Now,
um,
why is that?
because you want all your important devices to go over to the 5 gigahertz. or
Yeah,
6.
that and also, right, there's less channels to choose from, right?
Yeah,
Non-overlapping channels, and
right,
then 2.4 travels further, right?
right.
So we also want to make sure of that. But yeah, like you said, you want everything on 5 gigahertz because that's going to be where you're going to get your performance.
Right. Your
And
IoT
there's more channels
devices,
too, right?
yeah, there's a lot more channels, but you still probably need 2.4 gigahertz around for your IoT devices or,
Yep.
legacy devices like that. A lot of times we'll even recommend disabling the 2.4 gigahertz radio on some of the access points, maybe on like every other one, because you don't want that to be the radio that the client device picks first or hangs
Yeah.
on to.
Yeah, and that's another issue. So, if they're both cranked up, like 2.4 cranked up,
Yeah.
5 gigahertz, cranked up in regards to transmit power, you'll find your devices connecting to 2.4 because the signals may be better, or like if you are far away, then now you're connecting on 2.4, which is slower than 5 gigahertz, where you should maybe have another access point there where you can connect to 5 gigahertz, right?
Right. And now
So
we
we
can
run into that a lot.
And now we can talk about, band steering, right, which is built into the Genius Cloud. And what that will do is if your device, if it supports 5 or 6 gigahertz, it's going to deny 2.4 when it beacons out, right? It's gonna basically deny the device 2.4 if it supports 5 or 6.
Yeah.
Um,
It's going to put them on the better
it's
band.
going to put them on the better band, but in order to enable this, you have to make sure you have full 5 gigahertz coverage. You can't be skimpy with the access points again, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, like the thing is like, well, I'm only going to buy like one AP or two APs.
yeah,
Now, again, this is like really small deployments. It's
yeah,
not our typical deployments. So you just got to be cautious with that.
right. So if you do enable that band steering feature, make sure you have full coverage of 5 gigahertz.
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
And then there's another feature we'll talk about, fast roaming, right, or client steering.
Yeah.
So what that does is it uses the controller or the cloud controller to basically determine what AP that client device is gonna move to, right?
Right. Yeah, it's making sure the balance of client to AP ratio is good.
That
Right.
too. That would be that would be AP balancing, which
Client
is also
balancing,
built in
yeah,
client
client balance.
balancing. So the client steering or fast roaming though will, as you walk from one area to another, it should roam you onto the closer access point. Now it's still dependent on the client device, right? Your Windows PC or your iOS device is going to decide when it's going to roam, but the controller can, use some protocols and mechanisms to encourage that roaming.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Yeah, so I mean that's another good feature, but again, if you have the power cranked up, the client's never going to want to roam. So that's where you start first. May have the correct number of access points at good power level, and when you turn the power up, you're gonna lose speed too a lot of times because you're losing sensitivity and signal quality and things like this.
Right. Yeah, and so one thing I would mention in the cloud, when you pull up the dashboard for the first time, there's there's client ratio.
Yeah.
Well, which will indicate, how many devices or will tell you how many devices are on 5 gigahertz, how many devices are on 2.4 gigahertz, and who's on 6 gigahertz. So that indication, that client ratio is a good indication on if you have good AP placement,
Right.
and or like your configurations are good. So if your plan is to have everybody on 5 gigahertz, but everybody's on 2.4 gigahertz, you know that either the radio configuration's not right, the AP placement's not right, there's something wrong with your configuration.
Yeah,
Right?
and when you go in there, if you're trying to troubleshoot someone's network and you look at that, you look at like how many clients are on each band, right? And if you see too many on 2.4, you see like an iOS device on 2.4 that's not good. Like you need to turn the power down on that radio probably.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
So
so on my network, I would say 90. No, here's the real numbers. I just pulled it up. So right now, it's 641, right? So there's only 10 on 5 gigahertz, and there's 4 on 2.4, and I can tell you probably what the 4 are. But that's my ratio right now. So
And they're probably like printers or legacy devices that don't have...
garage door openers.
Oh, yeah.
Ring doorbell, that kind of stuff.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm going to look at mine too real quick. Let's see. So that dashboard is pretty interesting.
Yeah, I think everybody bypasses like what client ratio is. Client ratio is going to give you a quick glimpse of, hey, somebody's reporting like really slow speeds. I'll bring up the dashboard and look at client ratio. And if I see like everybody on 2.4 and very little on 5 gigahertz, I'm like, okay, either they have like the output power turned up really, really high, or they don't have enough APs. I can already identify that, and then I start to like look at that specific client to see what's going on with that client and understand where that client is located in reference to the AP that they think they're connected to.
Right.
Or I'll look at like live client. If I look at live client view, it's going to tell me what the SNR is, what the RSSI is, and what AP they're connected to. And if they're telling me, hey, that AP is on the other side of the, in another room, I'm standing under a different one, there you have it. Your output power is probably turned up too high or something like that. You just have a sticky client issue.
Right. So I mean, the moral of this is like, don't